it up, Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Badlands.
Those are Christie's.
They're
Can't
fake.
touch Christie's stuff.
They're fake. I can scratch my eye through them.
Still Christie's.
I know, but they're fake. Hey, if she leaves stuff in my studio, then it's fair game. Welcome to Badlands Book Club, covering Strauss and Howe's Fourth Turning. We are coming down to the wire. We've got a little bit left on today's.
Look at our bookmarks, though.
No, I got mine.
I got a sunflower, and Brian is a nut.
I am a nut.
Thank you to Tattoo Teacher for our super cool bookmarks.
Yes. Thank you so much. And I'm going to put this over here as we dive into chapter 10, but we got to talk about our sponsors for the show. First, Ash, tell our lovely audience about Tamarac Garden.
Are you looking for a better alternative to over-the-counter drugstore medications? Tamarac Garden yes, 100%. Tamarac Garden began from a parent's desperate need for safe and effective options for their kids tired of toxic chemicals. Taking matters into their own hands, they began crafting medicine from weeds, wildflowers, and herbs, the original time-tested healers that modern medicine can't match. Packed with antiviral herbs to boost immunity and fight illness, Tamarac Garden has, for a limited time, their elderberry and rose hips syrup kit available. And I'm just going to pause here. I'm going to mark my spot so I don't lose my place. But so my husband was pretty sick when I left for GART. He had a chest infection and he got, an antibiotic and whatnot, but he swears now by the elderberry syrup. I made the jar, which I was thinking was going to last us through the winter. Because, you take like a little tiny shot. Well, he drank the whole jar while I was gone. And so I need to get more of them. And I'm definitely getting more. We're going to get a few of the elderberry and rose hip kits because they're really, really incredible stuff that works. Not only is it delicious, no more battles with kids to take it, but it's easy to make and it will keep you and your family healthy all fall and all winter. And it is easy to make. I actually made it. So I don't cook. Most people know this. I married a chef and he's amazing, but I actually made this. And the chef drank the whole jar. Introducing Tamarac Garden's new baby line, clean, non-toxic, and gentle for newborns and moms, relieving cradle cap, diaper rash, stretch marks, and postpartum pain. Visit tamaracgarden.com today and use promo code Badlands for $10 off orders over $50. Remember to eat your weeds. tamaracgarden.com, promo code Badlands. And it's not just eating your weeds. There is the wrinkle serum, which I love. Absolutely love. It's got like this little like subtle undertones of coffee scent in it. I think there's actually coffee in it. There's lung love for chest stuff, kidney care for kidney stuff. There's one for your liver, I think. This is the super immune tincture. I was going into the hotel in Sarasota the night before I left to come back home. And the bottom of my bag fell out and all of my Tamarac Garden potions dropped into the ground. The jar, the canisters are actually super break proof because they didn't break. And I looked like a witch with all my potions, but it was fine because everybody should be eating your weeds and putting them on your face and drinking them and all of the things. So tamaracgarden.com, promo code Badlands.
I was thinking you were going to say that all of the bottles broke, but you were able to save the potion and make one super elixir. The fix all.
No, I was like a heart drop moment because I have a lot. Like I wish I could show you how many jars. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 jars. And I was, but they were fine. I don't even think they scratched. It's great stuff. Durable products. And they work.
All right. Well, let's also talk about our friends over at Vanman. You know about Vanman taking down big toothpaste with all natural oral care, right? Well, now it's time to grab the dental care bundle to gift. Vanman's tooth powder is loaded with minerals like eggshell and bone, and combined with pulling oils and peppermint aloe mouth rinse, it's truly the ultimate fluoride-free dental hygiene bundle that saves you 25% off the individual prices. And the van never stops, introducing Vanman's new Pearl Eye Cream and Sweet Onion Shampoo. Head over to badlandsmedia.tv/Vanman to see what's new. Again, that's badlandsmedia.tv/Vanman. Have you tried the Sweet Onion Shampoo?
No, and I keep meaning to research like what is the benefit of onions for hair care, and I keep forgetting to do that. But I am going to do. I'm intrigued by the onion shampoo thing.
Let me know how it is, and I'll sit there and wish that I could use the shampoo.
Yeah.
But I have a very special shampoo for my beard.
Yeah, I do love their tooth powder though. Vanman has great products, so
Yeah, they do.
everybody should check them out.
All right, let's jump into it. I was going to say let's jive into it. Let's jump into it.
Jive.
I speak jive. I'll let you start because I've got Halloween candy I'm munching on.
Well, also it's my turn, and also this is 13ers entering midlife, and so that's like me reading about me, and the next one is millennials, so it's you reading about you, so it just works. Oh. Now, once more, this is 13ers entering midlife, Doom players. Sorry.
Page 287.
Yeah, I got it. Now, once more, the belt is tight, and we summon the proper expression of horror as we look back at our wasted youth, F. Scott Fitzgerald said, after the crash that hit his peers at the cusp of what should have been their highest earning years. A generation with no second acts, he called his lost peers, but they proved him wrong. They ended their frenzy and settled down, thus helping to unjangle the American mood. Where their missionary predecessors had entered midlife believing in vast crusades, the post-crash loss skipped the moralisms and returned directly to the basics of life. What is moral is what you feel good after, declared Ernest Hemingway. What is immoral is what you feel bad after. Everything depends on the use to which it is put, explained Reinhold Niebuhr on behalf of a generation
That's James Comey.
Huh?
That's James Comey.
Oh, right. That's right.
That's his pseudonym.
Yeah, it is. Wow. On behalf of a generation that did useful things regardless of faith, a role the missionaries chose not to play. This no second act generation lent America the grit to survive dark global emergencies and in the end to triumph over them. In the Great Depression, the lost were hard hit, but refused to ask for public favors. In World War II, they manned draft boards, handed out ration coupons, mapped the invasions, and dispatched the bomber fleets. They gave the orders that killed thousands but saved millions. From blood and guts generals to give them hell presidents, the lost knew how to prevail over long odds and harsh criticism. This was the last time the nomad archetype entered the fourth turning. In a recent genre of action films, from War Games and Back to the Future to Terminator and Independence Day, a stock drama unfolds. A young protagonist, alone, unprepared, and immersed in a junkie culture, is chosen by chance to decide the fate of humanity. The situation looks dicey. The protagonist, too, has slim expectations of success. But at a pivotal moment, this lonely wayfarer challenges destiny, deals with the stress, zeroes in on what matters, does what is required, and comes out on top. The most popular video games following the same script stress one-on-one action and deft timing. Find a treasure, grab the tools, rescue a princess, save the kingdom, slay the enemy, and get out alive. Everything is yes, no, full of code words and secret places, in a style one TV executive calls Indiana Jones meets a game show. I've glimpsed our future, warns a high school valedictorian in the film Say Anything, and all I can say is, go back. The message to her classmates is understandable because nomad generations, what Christian Slater refers to as a long list of dead, famous, wild people, have always been the ones who lose ground in wealth, education, security, longevity, and other measures of progress. Yet they have also been the generations who lay at the fulcrum between triumph and tragedy, the ones who hoist their society through the darkest days of crisis. The onset of the fourth turning will find 13ers retaining their troubled reputation, the only change being that America's troubled age bracket will then be perceived as more 40-ish than 20-ish. They will carry the reputation for having come of age at a time when good manners and civic habits were not emphasized in homes and schools. With their arrival, midlife will lose moral authority and gain toughness. Their culture will be a hodgepodge of unblending styles, polyethnic currents that will reflect polyethnic currents that will reflect the centrifugal impulse from which many Americans, including 13ers, will now be eager to escape. In the economy, 13ers will fare significantly worse than boomers did at like age back in the mid-1980s. They will fan out across an unusually wide range of money and career outcomes. A few will be wildly successful, a larger number will be destitute, while most will be losing ground but doing tolerably. The crisis era's image of middle-aged worker will be a modest wage hopper who retains the flexibility to change life directions at a snap. The prototype midlife success story will be the entrepreneur who excels at cunning, flexibility, and high-tech ingenuity. The prototype failure will be the ruined gambler, broke, but still trying. The high-risk harbors where 13ers will have bet their stray cash during the unraveling, from lottos to Indian casinos to derivative markets, and will, like this generation, be stigmatized and left to rot. As they confront their money problems amid a mood of deepening crisis, 13ers will take pride in their ability to have a life and wall off their families from financial woes. Their divorce rate will be well below that of the midlife silent and boomers. They will clamp down on children. In exchange for financial help, many will invite their better off parents to live with them. Surveying the crisis era detritus of the unraveling, 13ers will see the opposite of what midlife silent saw in the awakening era wreckage of the high. Where the silent felt claustrophobic, yearning to break free in a world that felt too closed, 13ers will feel agoraphobic, yearning to root in a world that feels too open. Where the silent were torn between the socially necessary and the personally desirable, 13ers will be torn between the personally necessary and the socially desirable. Gripped with deeply felt family obligations, 13ers will resist the idea of relaxing their survival instincts, yet will sense the need to restore a sense of community. They will widen the continuing dispersions of technology and culture, yet will vote for politicians who promise to reverse it. Middle-aged Hispanic, Asian, and Arab Americans, among others, will embrace their racial or ethnic identities, yet will yearn for new ties to the communal core. The unraveling's initial 13er pop elite will lose influence as their peers tire of the old ways and seek something simpler and less frenzied. Those who persist in the discarded culturama will be chastised and perhaps even quarantined in the newly wholesome millennial youth culture. A few aging outcasts will scatter around the world, feeling like those whom Doug Kuplin calls a white Russian aristocracy exiled in Paris cafes, never to get what is due to us. Replacing them as the cutting edge of their generation will be a revenge of the nerds, slow but steady plodders, many of them ethnics, who will overtake the quick strikers who took one risk too many. The 13er mindset will be hard-boiled and avuncular, the risk-taking now mellowed by a crisis-era need for security. Middle-aged people will mentor youth movements, lend stylishness to hard times, and add nuts and bolts workmanship to the resolute new mood. They will be begrudgingly respected for their proficiency in multimedia and various untutored skills to which old boomers will be blind and young millennials dismissive. Throughout the economy, 13ers will be associated with risk and dirty jobs. They will seek workable outcomes more than inner truths. We won't have a bad backlash against our lost idealism, predicts slacker filmmaker Richard Linklater, since his generation never had that to begin with. Like Hemingway, their moral judgments will be situational, based on how everybody feels afterward. As the crisis deepens, 13ers will feel little stake in the old order, little sense that their names and signatures are on the social contract. They will have reached full adult maturity without ever having believed in either the American dream or American exceptionalism. They will never have known a time when America felt good about itself, when its civic and cultural life didn't seem to be decaying. From childhood into midlife, they will have always sensed that the nation's core institutions mainly serve the interests of people other than themselves. Not many of their classmates and friends will have built public sector careers apart from teaching and police work. Most 13ers will have oriented their lives around self-help networks of friends and other ersatz institutions that have nothing to do with government. The we're not worthy 13er streak of weak collective esteem will define and enhance their new civic role. Where the boomers' unraveling era narcissism interfered with America's ability to exact even minor sacrifice for public good, the 13ers' ironic self-deprecation will render their claims unusually selfless. We may not get what we want, we may not get what we need, chanted the young adults in true colors. Just so we don't get what we deserve. They will vote against their own short-term interests if persuaded that the community's long-term survival requires it. Where the silent once agonized over procedural braking mechanisms, where boomers had huge arguments over gesture and symbolism, 13er voters will disregard motive and ideology and will simply ask if public programs get results that are worth the money. In the fourth turning's next New Deal, 13ers will be strategically located between the moralistic old boomers and cherished young millennials. With 13ers occupying the margins of political choice, no intergenerational bargain will be enacted without their approval. In the Breakfast Club, a boomer teacher despaired of the thought that makes me get up in the middle of the night, that when I get older, these kids are going to take care of me. As elder benefits hit a fiscal wall, boomers and 13ers will, like siblings, half remember and half forget how they behaved toward each other in earlier decades. There will be some talk of ethno-generational war as non-Anglo 13ers attack boomer benefits of what former Social Security Commissioner Dorcas Hardy has called a mechanism by which the government robs their children of a better future in order to support a group of elderly white people. Led by ethnic populists, 13ers will strike a hard bargain with elders. They will collectively perceive as lifelong hypocrites with a weak claim on the public purse. So long as the next New Deal hits boomers hard, 13ers won't mind if it's projected to hit themselves even harder. That's interesting because it's like exactly what happened with the racial stuff, but like so much of this current turn and this current saculum, I don't think it's organic. You know, like a lot of the racial stuff happening now is contrived.
Yep.
I think. As the crisis rages on, the era's stark new communitarianism will require 13ers to rivet new grids in place. New breed mayors, #MomDowney, and governors will abandon old labels and alliances, patch together people in technology, and rekindle public support for community purpose. Having grown up in a time when walls were being dismantled, families dissolved, and loyalties discarded, 13 power brokers will reconstruct the social barriers that produce civic order. They will connive first to get the people behind them, next to bribe or threaten people into doing what's needed, then to solidify those arrangements into something functional. They won't worry about the obviously insoluble and won't fuss over the merely annoying. Their politicians won't brim with compassion or nuance and won't care if they have to win ugly. To them, the outcome will matter more than democracy's ritual aesthetics. Wow. To them, the outcome, aesthetics. Their hands strengthened by the demands of crisis, 13ers will sweep aside procedural legalisms and promises legislated by old regimes, much to the anguish of the octogenarian silent. They won't mind uttering and listening to the soundbite that seems to sum up a situation with eloquent efficiency. To critics, the new style of 13er urban leadership will appear unlearned, poorly rooted in values, even corrupt, but it will work. This generation's institutional rootlessness will make its leaders and electorates highly volatile, capable of extreme cross currents. Lacking much stake in the old order, many 13ers might impulsively welcome the notion of watching it break into pieces. Sometimes. They won't regard the traditional safety nets as important to their lives. The real-life experience of their own circles will reinforce their view that when people lose jobs or money, they can find a way to cope, deal with it, and move on. Looking back on their own lives, they will conclude that many of the awakening and unraveling era trends that may have felt good to older generations didn't work so well for them or for the nation. Come the crisis, many 13ers will feel that emergency action is necessary to recreate the kind of secure world they will feel was denied to them in childhood. In this environment, 13ers could emerge as the leaders of a crisis-era populism based on the notion of taking raw action now and justifying it later. A charismatic, anti-intellectual demagogue could convert the ad slogans of the third turning into political slogans of the fourth. No excuses. Why ask why? Just do it. Start with a winner-take-all ethos that believes in action for action's sake, exalts strength, elevates impulse, and holds weakness and compassion in contempt. Add class desperation, anti-rationalism, and perceptions of national decline. The product, at its most extreme, could be a new American fascism. The core feature of the 13er midlife will be the crisis itself. Early in the era, great devaluation could quash many a midlife career and cause real hardships to families under their protection. Like the lost generation in the 1920s, 13ers will have bought into the unraveling era boom market late and high, only to sell out late and low. At the same time, urgent necessity will lend new meaning to their lives. Many of the traits that were criticized for decades, their survivalism, realism, lack of affect, will now be recognized as vital national resources. The emergency will melt away much of the unraveling era's old fuss about political correctness. Now 13ers will hear far less complaint about their soldiers being too much the warrior, their entrepreneurs too much the operator, their opinion leaders too much the blunt talker. As the crisis catalyzes, they will recall the old Jesus Jones lyric, feel themselves right here, right now, watching the world wake up from history. Wow. That's pretty good. And they know they are the generation on the spot. Though 13ers will have little ability to influence the elements and timing of boomer-propelled crisis, they will provide the on-site tacticians and behind-the-scenes bosses whose decisions will determine its day-to-day course. Middle-aged 13ers will be the only ones capable of deflecting the more dangerous boomer tendencies. The boomers won't check themselves, nor will millennials, so the task will fall to 13ers to force the boomer priest warriors to give it a rest.
Wow.
When the fervor gets too deep, to get real when the sacrifices outweigh the future reward. A 13er may indeed be the intrepid statesman, general, or presidential advisor who prevents some righteous old Aquarian from losing the fateful lighting and turning the world's lights out. At or just after the crisis climax, 13ers will supplant boomers in national leadership. History warns that they could quickly find themselves playing a real-world Sim City, facing quick triage choices about who and what to sacrifice and when and how. They will need every bit of those old Doom player joystick skills, the deft timing, the instinctive sense of what counts and what doesn't, the ability to always move on from one problem to the next. Whatever they do, they will get more than their share of the blame and less than their share of the credit. As the crisis resolves, the society will be fully in 13er hands. If all ends well, their security-minded leadership will usher in the society away from the urgent crusades into the next high. If not, 13ers will be left with no choice but to yank younger generations by the collar and appraise what's left of their society and start anew. I like it.
So do I, but when you look at the way they're describing the conflict between the boomers and the 13ers here, it seems pretty obvious to me that boomers were the ones that educated the Gen Zers and the later millennials. Did you kind of get that sense?
The younger millennials and the next
younger millennials. So yeah, more closer to the Gen Z, but definitely Gen Z. Like I feel like they embody a lot of the comparisons that they make between boomers.
The archetypes repeat too, right? I mean, they're always going to have the same. They're always going to go in the same order,
right? And
according to the theory of the book.
And I feel like now that we're finally at a point in time where we can see this for our own selves. I see that.
I think there's one other aspect of this that I thought they would have mentioned, and maybe they did in the boomer section, but they did mention earlier in the book that we might be heading to a point where, because of the advancements in healthcare and whatnot, that the boomers are living longer and that they might not let go, right? Like that we're going to see some other type of archetype emerge because the advancements of this world have allowed that, essentially. And we see, Dianne Feinstein dying in Congress, and Nancy Pelosi is allegedly gonna not run again, but I've heard way too many politicians say that they're not going to run again and then do to believe that. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I feel like the longevity thing is really going to take hold with 13ers and millennials, because we're the ones that are going to be the first benefactors of the long life. Maybe not.
It's like, maybe. I mean, Americans are the sickest of any nation in the world. And by the way, we pay more for healthcare than any nation in the world. So, and that's by design. So maybe not.
Kushner said we're going to be the first generation, the last generation to die, or the first to live forever.
Yeah, but that's like an AI simulation theory bullshit thing. In terms of actual the physical humanity and lifespan. I also think too the psychology of, I don't know about millennials, but the psychology of 13ers is not going to want to hang on to the power forever, because we never wanted it to begin with. And the only reason that 13ers are stepping in and taking the power, aside from, the innovator pioneer ones that are going to do that in every generation, is because they broke the freaking world, and we have to, right? Like you had that part where it talked about, tell the boomers to give it a rest, or tell them to step it up when they need to step it up. Like there is this whole entitlement mentality that, they feel that they built it and it's theirs, and they made all the right investments. And yeah, the world is totally different, and they pulled up the ladder behind them. Right. And the rest of us just aren't doing the bootstrap thing well enough, but that's unsustainable. And it is going to make them villains of history. Certainly.
You just there's a lot of people listening right now. They're like, damn you, Ash. We're not villains.
Talking about collectively from an archetype standpoint, not any one boomer individually. I love all of you. You're amazing.
All right. Millennials entering young adulthood. Power Rangers. Go, Power Rangers. Quote, I promise as a good American to do my part. 100,000 young people chanted on Boston Commons in 1933. I will help President Roosevelt bring back good times. These young GIs were touted by Malcolm Cowley as brilliant college graduates who pictured a future in which everyone would be made secure by collective planning and social discipline. Whereas at the same age, Cowley's own lost peers had grown disillusioned and weary from hearing so much pessimism about their future. During the lost peak coming of age years, the youth suicide rate rose by half and the homicide rate by 700%, while American youth showed precious little improvement in rates of illiteracy or college entry. A few years before the crash of 1929, youth took the most dramatically positive change ever recorded. All of a sudden, young Americans turned away from cynicism, suicide, and crime toward optimism, education, and civic fealty. A new vernacular spoke of trust and geometric order, of level-headed and regular guys who were on the square, fit in, and could be counted on. Underneath, we really thought that we were all right, Gene Shuford recalled. If the souring economy dampened many a career and marriage plan that only steeled the GI determination to act on the 4-H motto, make the best better, older people lent them direction and help. America cannot always build the future for our youth, said FDR on the eve of World War II, but we can build our youth for the future. Having received 80% of a huge youth vote in 1932 and 85% in 1936, by far the largest such mandate ever recorded, FDR proclaimed that the very objectives of young people have changed. Away from the dream of the golden ladder, each individual for himself, and toward the dream of a broad highway on which thousands of your fellow men and women are advancing with you. Communism. Before long, the highways and seaways were full of a generation now fully in uniform, heralded by General Marshall as the best damn kids in the world, a world they proceeded to conquer. The difficult we do at once, their Seabees famously proclaimed. The impossible takes a little longer. This was the last time the hero archetype entered a fourth turning.
Pause there for a second. So FDR says the very objectives of young people have changed away from the dream of the golden ladder and each individual for himself and toward the dream of a broad highway on which thousands of your fellow men and women are advancing with you. Now, FDR was doing a whole bunch of societal expansion, right? So what he's saying there may be true. It also may be narrative seeding for what he was trying to bring about, and certainly did bring about.
Well, he certainly laid the foundation for the massive expansion of the federal government. That's absolutely for sure.
Yeah.
The bureaucracy that got ushered in
Rise of the administrative state.
Yep, 100%. And that's
overruled. Neil Gorsuch, The Human Toll of Too Much Law.
Our last book. Yep. Go back and listen to that. And that is the result of the New Deal. And it all started right then and there. And what FDR is basically saying right there is we are getting rid of, capitalism in that time, which I think was a little bit more pure, still not pure, but and ushering in communism, ushering in socialism, borderline communism,
and building on the inversion of the republic in post World War II, right? Because we're only a couple decades removed from the Federal Reserve being started, and that was only a couple decades removed from the Reconstruction Amendments. And if you've got global central planners planning in decades, as Prussiagate, for example, posits, then this is what you would expect to see, I think. Slowly and then all at once, right?
Yep. Power Rangers are wholesome kid soldiers in bright primary color uniforms, no relation to the junk-fed mutant turtles of the 13er child era. Excuse me, I grew up on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Power Rangers have provided the unraveling, leading toy role models for children. When summoned, these ordinary youths transform themselves into thunderbolting evil fighters. Cheerful, confident, and energetic, Power Rangers are nurtured to succeed in the face of great odds. Whatever they do, from displaying martial arts to piloting high-tech weaponry, they do as a choreographed group. Their very motto, the power of teamwork overcomes all, speaks of strength and cooperation, energy and conformity, virtue and duty. Their missions are not chosen by themselves, but by an incorporeal elder whose vision and wisdom they have total trust. Come the fourth turning, coming-of-age millennials will have a lot in common with these action toys. Holy shit, they were brainwashing us for communism. In the next crisis, millennials will prove false the supposition.
And just so you know, as 13er, I never watched that show.
Power Rangers?
Yeah.
I was probably like 11 or 12 when it came out, and like you were a loser if you watched Power Rangers in my age group.
Yeah.
Like we made fun of the kids that watched Power Rangers. And I definitely watched Ninja Turtles. I remember I got the pizza.
Ninja Turtles were cool though. Ninja Turtles weren't communists.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of. They lived in no, they weren't communists.
No, they weren't communists.
They were vigilantes more than anything. Underground.
Anarcho-capitalists.
Secret. Yeah.
Anarcho-capitalist vigilantes that ate pizza and lived in the sewer.
In the next crisis, millennials will prove false the supposition, born of the recent awakening and unraveling eras, that youth is ever the age for rebellion, alienation, or cynicism. And they break into their 20s, as they break into their 20s, millennials will already be accustomed to meeting and beating adult expectations. Basking in praise, they will revive the ideal of the common man, whose virtue is defined less by self than a collegial center of gravity. Rather than argue with elders, millennials will seek out their advice about the ought-to-dos from old boomers and about the want-to-dos from 13ers. But their style will be distinct from either generation. From the youth perspective, most boomers will seem too unworldly and most 13ers too undisciplined to be emulated. New pop culture trends will be big, bland, and friendly. In film, young stars will be linked with positive themes, display more modesty in sex and language, and link new civic purpose to screen violence. In sports, players will become more coachable, more loyal to team and fans, and less drawn to trash talk. Yeah, right. In-your-face slam dunks and end zone taunts. Yeah, right. In pop music, millennials will resurrect the old ritual of happy group singing, from old campfire favorites to new tunes with simple melodies and upbeat lyrics. Whether in film, sports, or music, the first millennial celebrities will win praise as good role models for children. Oh, yeah. Every youth domain will become more mannerly, civic-spirited, and emotionally placid. In college, millennials will lead a renaissance in student decorum and appearance, making profanity as out of date as the backward cap. Yeah, fuck that. On urban streets, sorry, that was unnecessary, but I also wear backward caps, so.
Yeah, you used to do it on the air.
Yeah, I used to always wear it all the time.
That would have been
Now,
that would have been a much more pointed.
yeah, if I was
Fuck
wearing it.
that! If you were wearing the backward cap.
Fuck that.
There you go.
Every youth domain will become more mannerly, civic spirited, and emotionally placid. I read that. On urban streets, young adults will begin sensing that their best path to prosperity is to follow their peers, not their families. In technology, they will carve out fresh concepts of public space by designing fewer and more centralized paths of communication, and by using information to empower groups rather than individuals. In social movements, they will initially seem pacifist, hard to ruffle, their civic power as yet untapped. The media will miss no opportunity to celebrate good deeds that they do. On the job, millennials will be seekers of order and harmony. They will delight They got a much better outlook on my generation than yours.
Well, yeah, and also this one I take exception with. On the job, millennials will be seeker of order and harmony. Millennials came into the workplace with a list of demands. And, I was at the point when millennials were entering the workforce, I was at the point where I had paid dues, and was like manager at that point. And these guys came in and it was like, okay,
I want to be a co-founder.
Yeah. Want to be a co-founder, want to be the CEO on day one, don't want to actually pay the dues, do the work to get there. But you think that this is where the whole participation trophy thing comes from. You think you're so amazing because you've been told, not you, right? But this was the vibe of the workforce. You think you're so amazing because you've been told you're so amazing your whole life. And now you're meeting the real world. But with millennials, the real world changed. They accommodated. It's where we got freaking pet insurance and pool tables in the workforce, and all of these different employee arrangements and agreement and all the feelings based economy, and all of that came with millennials into the workplace.
I'm okay with the pool tables in the workplace.
Whatever.
On the job, millennials will be seekers of order and harmony. They will delight employers with their skills, work habits, and institutional loyalties. They will have a knack for organization and hierarchy more than creative entrepreneurship. Young workers will revitalize trade unions and treat coworkers as partners more than rivals. The millennials' entry into the workforce, combined with the boomers' exit, will produce a sudden surge in productivity, quite the opposite of the stagnation that arose from the awakening's boomer entry and GI exit. The great devaluation may occur right around the time millennials fill the 20s age bracket, just as they are emerging as a truly national generation, the pride of their elders. Whatever their new economy hardships, and they could be severe, millennials will not rebel, but will instead mobilize for public purpose. Older people will be anguished to see these good kids suffer from the mistakes of others, or for the mistakes of others. Boomers and thirteeners will together urgently resist the prospect that a second consecutive generation might be denied access to the American dream. No matter how shattered the economy, no matter how fiscally stretched the government, places will be found for the rising generation. To accomplish this, the status of young workers will be standardized, their job titles shortened, and pay gaps narrowed. Millennials will respond with a cheerful patience reminiscent of the Depression-era GIs. Government will play an important role in their lives as people of all ages jointly resolve to remove any barrier to a bright millennial future.
So that explains it. That legitimately explains why the real world changed.
Why?
Because they all got together and said, no, we can't allow another generation to be denied access to the American dream. So all that bootstrap shit that we did to the 13ers, we're going to put a pause on that. We're going to give these kids everything they want. And then they turned into insufferable little cunts, to be honest, in the workplace.
I was more going with the comparison to the GIs, considering that my generation, my millennial generation, is probably the most widespread that fought in the OIF wars.
Yeah, but the Gen X was the first Gulf War, right?
Yeah, but that didn't go nearly as long. I mean, that was a very short war.
No, it did bring a lot of people in, though. A lot of those guys joined up.
Yeah, but I mean, by the time Afghan and Iraq happened, there was only a handful of them left. The guys that in 2001, you got to remember 18. I was turning 18 in 2001 when we first invaded the And so that is literally the very beginning of the millennial generation right there.
Yeah.
And so
into adulthood, right? Young adulthood.
Yeah. And so that the millennial generation, and perhaps maybe that's why, not Gen Z, but what are we on, Gen Alpha now? Perhaps that's why Gen Alpha seems to be a little bit more, they got their head on straight, it seems. Like Gen Alpha, I'm confident in them.
So millennial is the hero, which the next one would be what? Prophet? Hang on.
Yeah.
I have it marked somewhere.
What is it? Hero, prophet, nomad, lost? Lost, hero.
Lost is a generation, not an archetype.
Oh, excuse me. Artist.
So hero, artist, nomad. No, because it goes nomad, hero. Hero, something, artist, nomad. Hang on.
I don't know.
Keep going. It's going to drive me nuts, though, so I'm going to look it up.
All right. With the youth coming of age, so willing and energized, older leaders will be inspired to enlist them for public actions that in the unraveling would have felt hopeless. Young adults will see politics as a tool for turning collegial purpose into civic progress. Millennial voters will confound pundits with huge youth turnouts, massing on behalf of favored candidates, especially elders who, like Lincoln or FDR, can translate spiritual resolve into public authority. They will reject the negativism and cloying effect of the political campaigning they witness as children. When young adults encounter leaders who cling to the old regime and who keep propping up senior benefits programs that will by then be busting the budget, they will not tune out 13er lifestyle. They will not turn out 13er style. Instead, they will get busy working to defeat or overcome their adversaries. Their success will lead some older critics to perceive real danger in a rising generation perceived as capable but naive. This youthful hunger for social discipline and centralized authority could lead millennial youth brigades to lend mass to dangerous demagogues. The risk of class warfare will be especially grave if the 20% of millennials who were poor as children, 50% in inner cities, come of age seeing their peer bonded paths to generational progress blocked by elder inertia. Unraveling era adults who are today chilled by school uniforms will be truly frightened by millennials' crisis era collectivism. As Sinclair Lewis warned of GIs in the 1930s, older Americans will look abroad at rigidly ordered societies and wonder whether among youth with so much power and so little doubt, it can happen here.
Hang on a second. Pause there. It can't happen here. Was that? This is really the millennials crisis era collectivism. Think about COVID, right? The response to COVID and the response to George Floyd, right? The racial imperative, racial crisis. That collectivist response in a crisis is definitely a feature. But I have the generation. So the prophet generation is the boomer. The nomad generation is the 13er. Hero generation is millennial, which would make Gen Z the artist, which would make Gen Alpha the prophet generation.
Yeah. In line with the boomers.
Yeah.
Which was what I had alluded to, that the boomers.
Yeah, I just wanted to line it up because I had an inkling that you were right, but that it's so predictable.
Well, yeah.
That's crazy.
Whenever their politics lead, millennials will become identified with a new American mainstream, a fledgling middle class just wanting to assert itself. They will vex Hollywood's unraveling era elite with their cool rationalism. They will vex feminists by accepting a new mystique between the sexes. They will vex free marketeers.
Or new sexes.
No, just new sexes. Yeah. They're not going to mystique the sexes. They're
biology denial.
Add new ones. They will vex feminists by accepting a new mystique between the sexes. They will vex free marketeers with their demands for trade barriers, government regulation, labor standards, and public works. Just as the unraveling's political agenda centered around children, the agenda of the next New Deal, will center around young adults. In exchange, old boomers will impose a new duty of compulsory service, notwithstanding those elders' own youthful draft resistance. Millennials will not oppose this because they will see in it a path to public achievement. Wow, this is pretty spot on.
Yep.
If inducted for war, Millennials will cast aside any earlier pacifism and march to duty. Like Power Rangers, they will not be averse to militarized mass violence, just to uncontrolled personal violence, quite the opposite of boomer youths back in the awakening. National leaders will not hesitate to mobilize and deploy them in huge armies. Where boomer youths once screamed against duty and discipline, boomer elders will demand and receive both from millennial troops. Near the climax of crisis, the full power of this rising generation will assert itself, providing their society with a highly effective instrument for imposing order in an unruly world. They will appear capable of glorious collective deeds, of conquering distant lands, of potently executing any command that may be issued. Quite the opposite of the boomers' awakening era casualties in Vietnam, which weakened the public will to fight. The millennials' heroic sacrifices will only add to the national resolve. As a crisis-era president commits the society to a clear path for a bright future, the political juggernaut of millennial youth will stand squarely with their beloved commander-in-chief. This generation of young heroes will follow wherever the gray champion leads, whether to triumph or disaster. It's pretty fascinating.
I wonder if that gray champion is Obama in this specific instance.
He's black, half black, which is, I guess, black and gray. Black and white make gray.
He's half black, half white makes gray. Right? No, because of the timing, right? So he comes about 2008. And that gray I think that could work. New silent era entering childhood. And that's assuming, of course, that the gray champion doesn't actually have to be a good guy, because it wouldn't work if they have to be a good guy. New silent entering childhood. Sweet innocence. Overprotective was a word first used to describe our parents, Benita Eisler recalls of her silent peers' Depression-era youth, when adults ruled the child's world with a stern hand. Back in the GI childhood years, no one spoke of overprotection because the crusade to protect the child's world was then just getting started. As the Literary Digest demanded a, quote, reassertion of the parental authority, parents injected what historian Daniel Rogers describes as a new explicit insistence on the conformity into child life. Thus raised, GIs passed through childhood showing America's largest measurable one-generation improvement in health, size, and education, along with big reductions in youth crime and suicide. By the time the silent entered school, however, clean-cut behavior was taken for granted. The leading parenting books suggested a no-nonsense, total situation parenting with behavioral rules that critics likened to the housebreaking of puppies. Nice. Whenever movie kids like Alfalfa or Shirley Temple encountered adults, they would mind their manners. During the war years, America had perhaps the best behaved teenagers in its history, but controversy simmered about whether the long absence of soldiering fathers would cause them to grow up a little uncertain of themselves. Times were indeed fearful for children, since any day could bring devastating news. Frank Conroy recalls having asked as a boy, what was in the newspapers when there wasn't a war going on? This was the last time the artist archetype entered a fourth turning. So this is Caleb's generation. Many of the social who are now entering the second turn of their life. Many of the social conditions we think of as Black problems or merely white problems a generation later, William Raspberry has observed. He sounds racist. Mm-hmm. Early in the awakening, the children in America's urban cores were the harbingers of new trends that afflicted the whole society by the start of the unraveling: disintegrating families, absentee fathers, teen mothers, rising crime, falling performance in school. In today's unraveling, America's urban children are once again bearing signposts. They have become shut-ins, tucked behind walls, sleeping in bulletproof bathtubs, escorted to school by anxious adults, and swept off late-night streets by police curfews, even though the actual risk of violence in many inner cities is beginning to recede. Not anymore. Come the fourth turning, variants of these 90s era inner city child swaddling trends will be visible all across America, from downtown to suburb to small town. Imagine being a child living in a world surrounded by a concrete wall originally raised to ward off dangerous neighbors. The danger has receded, the enemies are now more distant, but the concrete remains. Adults don't bother to remove the wall because they're busy and find it an easy way to keep track of their kids. Come the fourth turning, the rules a child must follow will begin outlasting the original reason for those rules. Come the fourth turning, the rules a child must follow will begin outlasting the original reasons for those rules. So this kind of goes again to the human toll of too much law. We have a whole bunch of laws and the reasons for them have since passed, but we still have those laws.
Right.
Reason for those rules. Picture high-rise children still barricaded behind walls in a time of reduced crime on the streets below. Picture compulsory kindergarten uniforms in a time of wholesome new trends in a young adult fashion. Picture a vigorous police presence in a time of generally compliant teenagers. What in the unraveling felt like sensible protections will now in the crisis reach a state of stifling suffocation at the hands of parents and governments alike. The babies of the OOs will be America's next artist archetype, the new silent generation. Their link to crisis will be as the vulnerable seeds of society's future that must be saved while emergency is overcome and the enemy defeated. They will be the crisis era's fearful watchers, tiny helpers, and, if all goes well, lucky inheritors. Tethered close to home, they will do helpful little deeds like recycling, keyboarding, or attending to elders, the circa 2020 equivalents of planting World War II victory gardens or collecting scrap metal. Yeah. Tending to elders in 2020 was hard because they locked them away and wouldn't let anybody see them.
Oh, yeah.
The new silent will look on adults as competent and in control. Crisp rights and wrongs will be a common adult message, unquestioning compliance, the expected response. New silent kids will not be encouraged to take chances or do things on their own. Naivete and sweet innocence will be presumed to flow from those of a tender age. In a reverse from the unraveling, deviancy will be redefined upwards. Youth, sex, abortion, and substance abuse will remain at low levels. Okay, well, that one's a fail. Parental divorce will be restigmatized, and public talk about private matters will be newly taboo in the media. Unlike today, the bulk of the family disruptions will be involuntary, the result of not of personal choice or dysfunction, but of crisis-era forces utterly beyond the family's control. Child welfare will be a settled priority, no longer anyone's crusade. Protective nurture will be on autopilot. Few adults will dispute that children must be taught community norms, often by rote. Children who fall below standards will be warned that the community has ways of remembering, that a young person's reputation can be easy to harm but hard to repair. Good child behavior, academics, and civic deeds will win few kudos because all of these will simply be expected. Children's activities that felt new for millennials will now feel well established. The child's world will be altered only to meet urgent community needs, not any new inklings of children's needs. And in America, locked in a crisis, no one will be particularly interested in the teen culture except to chastise anything that offends. As nativism runs its course, the new silent will be the least immigrant, most English-speaking generation in living memory. Growing up in a time of, they did not plan for Biden. Growing up in a time of adult sacrifice and narrowing cultural horizons, the new silent will develop an earnest and affective temperament, yet feel stuck in a stifling parochial social environment. The new silent will be treated this way because that will be how middle-aged 13ers will prefer it, and they will be America's dominant crisis era nurturers of children. As parents, teachers, and community leaders, 13ers will look back on their awakening era childhoods as chaotic, hurried, insecure, and underprotected. While 13ers take pride in the firmer, more reliable family life they will establish, new silent kids will eventually look back on it as smothering overcorrection. Later in life, they will recall their crisis era child's world as having been oversimple, overslowed, overprotected, too grounded in moral cement, and, like the silent, they will loosen parental authority accordingly. Like history's other inheritor and post-heroic generations, the new silent will endure constant reminders of what great sacrifices are being made on their behalf. As the crisis rolls towards its resolution, they will cope with anxiety, fear, and powerlessness. For the rest of their lives, they will never forget these feelings.
All right. Toward the first turning. In 1781, as the British troops surrendered at Yorktown, American pipers played the song, "The World Turned Upside Down." That was indeed how history appeared to the Patriot Army phalanx nearby. And in later Secula, to forces massed at the McLean House in Appomattox or on the deck of the Missouri. Hello, Cash. What are you doing? Having witnessed...
Oh, Cash. Sorry.
Cash.
I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just sitting here.
Having witnessed incredible convulsions of history, these troops presented themselves for one final confirmation of a new dawn. Then it was over. Their society remained mobilized for crises, still bristling with war material, but now the troops were on their way home to chart different roles in what they hoped would be a calmer new era. When final treaties were crafted, reparations assessed, punishments meted out, or regencies managed, elders remained to close out the era. Benjamin Franklin did this in Philadelphia and Paris, the radical Republicans in Richmond and Washington, Douglas MacArthur in Asia, and George Marshall in Europe. That much was expected, but if the old priest warriors kept crusading, as Thaddeus Stevens tried to do with the impeachment of Andrew Johnson, they were ceremoniously but firmly nudged aside. It's an old story. Moses was not allowed to accompany Joshua into the promised land. No winter lasts forever, Hal Borland written. No spring skips its turn. So it is with the final season of the saeculum. Of the four turnings, none spends its energy more completely than a crisis, and none has its end more welcomed. In nature, the frigid darkness serves as a vital purpose, but only to enable what follows. Cold is agreeable, said Pascal, that we may get warm. If the crisis catalyst comes on schedule around the year 2005, then the climax will be due around 2020, the resolution around 2026. Damn, let's go. What will America?
I mean,
it's within a year, depending on how the midterms go. Oh, you just completely froze. All right, Ash froze. Okay, we'll keep going. Oh, there you are. You're back. No audio? Okay, I'll keep going. Just reboot. All right, so there it is. The resolution around 2026.
That's crazy to me. Spot freaking on. They said it was going to start around 2005. I would argue it started in 2001, but went a little bit longer.
If the crisis catalyst comes on schedule around the year 05. So is it
crisis catalyst 9/11?
9/11, the wars, the market, the
but
recession.
All that stuff is downstream of 9/11.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. What will America be like as it exits the fourth turning? History offers no guarantees.
America will be awesome in MAGA. Sorry.
Golden age.
No,
it's America first, Ash. It's not MAGA anymore.
I don't follow the leadings of retards.
I have
MAGA and America first are the same thing. And people trying to redefine it, people who were never MAGA to begin with, trying to redefine it is retarded.
History offers no guarantees. Obviously, things could go horribly wrong. The possibilities ranging from a nuclear exchange to incurable plagues, from terrorist anarchy to high-tech dictatorship.
All of the things.
We should not assume that Providence will always exempt our nation from the irreversible tragedies that have overtaken so many others. Not just temporary hardships, but debasement and total ruin. Since Vietnam, many Americans suppose they know what it means to lose a war. Losing in the next fourth turning, however, could mean something incomparably worse. Incomparably. It could mean a lasting defeat from which our national innocence and perhaps even our nation might never recover. As many Americans know from their own ancestral backgrounds, history provides numerous examples of societies that have been wiped off the map, grounded in submission, or beaten so badly they revert to barbarism. The outcome of the next fourth turning will determine the enduring reputation of the unraveling era in which we now live. In the 1930s, the 1920s were blamed for everything that had gone wrong. After World War II was won, however, Americans began to look back more fondly on those roaring good times. Imagine how the 1920s would have looked in the 1950s had the Great Depression never lifted. The Axis prevailed, or both. Now imagine the pre-crisis 1990s, all its O.J. Simpson and Michigan militias, its Beavises and Buttheads and Crips and Bloods, its low voter turnout and anguish over tiny cuts in Medicare's growth, all from the vantage point of America in the year 2030. If America plunges into an era of depression or violence, which by then has not lifted, we will likely look back on the 1990s as a decade when we valued all the wrong things that made all the wrong choices. If the fourth turning goes well, however, memories of the unraveling will be laced with nostalgic fun. More important, a good ending will probably mean that America has taken individual freedom now that now seem socially corrosive and embedded them constructively in a new social order. After the next fourth turning that has solved the historical problems of our saeculum, many of today's unraveling era social problems will be recognizable as worsening symptoms of what had to be and was fixed. In every saeculum, the awakening gives birth to a variety of individual and social ideals that are mutually incompatible within the framework of the old institutional order. In the unraveling, the tension between wants and shoulds widens, sours, and polarizes. In the crisis, a new social contract reconciles these competing principles on a new and potentially higher level of civilization. In the following high, this contract provides the secure platform on which a new social infrastructure can be hoisted. In the parlance of its time, each of the past three crises resolved aggravating value struggles that had been building up over the prior saeculum. The American Revolution resolves the 18th century struggle between commerce and citizenship. The Civil War resolved the early 19th century struggle between liberty and equality. The New Deal resolved the industrial era struggle between capitalism and socialism. What present-day tension?
I would argue that none of those statements are actually true. I don't think any of those things were resolved.
Crisis resolved struggles, the American Revolution between commerce and citizenship. Yeah.
Liberty and equality. The Civil War solved the struggle between liberty and equality. No, the Civil War inverted the republic into a major democracy. And the New Deal struggle between capitalism and socialism. No, the New Deal made America more socialist than it ever was, and arguably led to what we're dealing with in this saeculum.
Yeah.
But the storytelling is correct. That is the stories that we are told of those events.
Right. Revisionist history. What present-day tensions will the next fourth turning resolve? Most likely, they will be culture wars updates of the perennial struggle between the individual and the collective, with new labels dating back to our recent consciousness revolution. This time, the individual ideal goes under the rubric of choice, from marketplace choice to lifestyle choice, from choice about manners, appearance, or association to the choice of expression and entertainment. The social ideal goes under the rubric of community and points to where all the various choices must be curtailed if we wish to preserve strong families, secure borders, rising living standards, a healthy environment, and all the other building blocks of sustainable civilization. In today's unraveling, with its mood of pessimism and reconciliation between the opposing principles, seems and probably is impossible. But come the fourth turning, in the white heat of society's ekpyrosis and rebirth, a grand solution may suddenly snap into place. Once a new social contract is written and a new civic order established, it could eradicate, or at least narrow, many of today's seemingly insoluble contradictions. For example, between no-fault divorce and dependable families, poverty assistance and the work ethic, or gun control and personal defense. If the next fourth turning concludes successfully, some great leader may be credited with saving individual empowerment by making it compatible with higher ideals of social responsibility, much as FDR was credited with saving capitalism while forging the New Deal, and Lincoln with extending liberty while redefining America's nationhood. Don't get triggered. This is how a triumphant fourth turning can establish a new high, a new golden age, a new plane of American civilization, a workable 21st century redefinition of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However sober we must be about the dark possibilities of crisis, the record of prior fourth turnings gives cause for optimism. With 5 of the past 6 crises, it is hard to imagine more uplifting finales. Even after the Civil War, the American faith in progress returned with new robustness. As a people, we have always done best when challenged. The new world still stands as a beacon of hope and virtue for the old, and we have every reason to believe this can continue. Whatever the outcome of the fourth turning, whatever its ekpyrosis and new social contract, by the end of its mood of grim determination, will feel unshakable. People will worry about what will happen once the storm clouds pass. As in the months after VJ.
What storm, Mr. President?
You'll see. As in the months after VJ Day, people will fear that their society might revert to its pre-crisis chaos, that it could again become like the 1990s, with all that that would entail. But on the brink of the new turning, they will be amazed at how ingrained their new civic habits have become. By the mid-2020s, the generational archetypes will be ready for something new. The fourth turning will be ready to expire when old prophets weaken, nomads tire of public urgency, and heroes feel hubris. This occurs around the time each archetype stands on the brink of a new life phase. The elder prophets, still leading the culture while vacating institutions, now worry about a society whose new materialism they will find alien. The midlife nomads, sensing that the old crusades have run their course, now plan to fortify community discipline and narrow the scope of personal choice. The young adult heroes, energized by the success of collective action, now want to change society from the outside in. The child artists, credulous youths in a world of powerful adults, learn to trust conventions and prepare for ways to help others. By the middle 2020s, the archetypal constellation will change as each generation begins entering a new phase of life. Once the gray champion recedes yet again into history, younger people may still respect but will no longer heed the old moral imperatives, having wearied of the cost of principle. If the crisis ends badly, very old boomers could be truly despised. If it ends well, they will bask in the grand economy and encomia in a new golden era that will resemble the very kind of ordered society in which they were raised as children. Many will seclude themselves deep in the woods or in dusty libraries, exploring ways to bequeath to posterity their final states of consciousness. Like the four old men, Holmes, Longfellow, Whittier, and Lowell, whose portraits graced countless Gilded Era schoolrooms, the all-seeing eyes of old boomer titans will stare down on yet another child generation. Recalling what old Susan B. Anthony did for the turn-of-the-century women's movement, a few boomer antiques will exhort the young to rise against the post-crisis order and launch another 1960s-style awakening. Around the year 2050, to the delight of a few lingering ex-flower children straddling age 100, Pepperland will finally recur. Come the next high, at long lost freed of the weight of boomers, 13ers will be America's new old fogies, widely perceived as old-fashioned, the only generation still rooted in the mostly forgotten pre-crisis past. If the crisis ends badly, they might provide the demagogues, authoritarians, even the tribal warlords who try to pick up the pieces.
I volunteer for a tribal warlord.
If the crisis goes well, its 13er generals may well become U.S. presidents of the next high. Crusty conservatives, they will warn younger generations of the danger of rushing too swiftly in a world rigged with pitfalls. They will force the nation to produce more than it consumes, perhaps through stiff taxes, budget surpluses. Yeah, right. And exactly the opposite choices from the one elders made in their own unraveling era youth. Under 13er leadership, America will concentrate on building infrastructure and institutions, that's a fact, not on cultural depth or spiritual fervor. That's kind of correct. In the high, a stingier public treatment of old people will be taken for granted. Despite a rough and neglected elderhood, 13ers will find solace in seeing their children shoot past them in affluence and education. Of all today's generations, the millennials will probably have the most at stake in the coming crisis. If it ends badly, they would bear the full burden of its consequence throughout their adult lives. If they come of age traumatized like the progressive era youth of the Civil War, millennials will thereafter attend to the details of suffering.
There's no B. Will thereafter.
Oh, will thereafter attend, to the details of suffering and healing as heirs to the artist archetype. Yet if the crisis ends well, millennials will gain a triumphant reputation for virtue, valor, and competence. People of all ages will steer them vast fiscal rewards and build them grand monuments. What the? It's kind of a weird way to say that. That's why I had to read that twice.
Yeah, that one's weird.
Like the world conquering, it's kind of like they're saying it in slang. People of all ages will build them vast rewards and build them grand monuments.
It's the use of steer. The use of steer is weird to me. Steer them vast fiscal rewards and build them grand monuments. That part's weird.
Like the world conquering GIs in midlife, millennials will feel intensely modern in science and taste. They will construct large new things, establish a powerful social regimen, and indulge their children. When a new awakening later erupts, the millennials will for the first time discover a generation that refuses to celebrate them, their own kids, freshly come of age. A positive ending to the crisis will craft the new silent into the romantic technicians and the aesthetes of an exultant new order. Feeling the emotional strain of their cloistered childhood and post-heroic youth, they will sing plaintive songs and tell ironic jokes about the brittle inequities of the new order. Though unable to match the millennial standard, they will be their able helpmates. If a prosperous new high thrusts mankind deeper into space, the new silent could well be the first to reach other planets in a rocket fleet launched by the next John Kennedys and piloted by the next Neil Armstrongs. And if the crisis ends in triumph, what will come to the splendid new victory generation born just after it ends? As children, they will be indulged. As youths, they will revolt against the millennial-built world. In midlife, they will protect their children from civic decay. As elders, sometime around the year 2100, the gray champion will appear yet again among them. History is seasonal, but its outcomes are not foreordained. Much will depend on how tall we stand in the trials to come. But there is more to do than just wait for that time to come. The course of our national and personal destinies will depend in large measure on what we do now as a society and as individuals to prepare.
So this is exciting because we're going to get into how they hacked it. The last and we're on part 3, you guys. We're almost done.
Yeah, next week.
Brian and I are happy about.
Yes, next week should be our last, probably our last day reading it. How many pages is it? It says like 30.
So 30 maybe something left.
Yeah, maybe 2 more weeks.
Let's see.
But either way, coming to an end.
Like 18 pages, I think we did. No, 13 pages we did today. So probably 2 more weeks.
15.
34. Yeah, there's 30 pages left.
Yeah, so we got
probably 2 weeks.
And then after that, I think we're going to do War is a Racket, just as kind of like an intermission.
Palate cleanser.
Yeah, it's very short. And then from there, we got to decide on what to do next. So
yeah, let us know what you want us to do.
Yep.
In the chat. This show is recorded.
Oh, yeah, we should mention that at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you were kind enough to leave us a rant or a boost, we will read them next week, promise. And Ashe is off fighting the overlords of Colorado and the NGO machine.
Like nothing is going to happen tomorrow, I don't think. I just have this compulsion that I feel like they're going to show up and try to pull some sort of fast one and nobody's going to be there. And for whatever reason, it's going to be like, oh, well, we have to, push this down the path a little further and, delay it a little bit further because of whatever. So I'm going because I'm pro se in this action. And if somebody shows up to try and pull fast one, I can actually stand up in court and speak and say, hey, Your Honor, this is frivolous bullshit.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So, but don't expect, people shouldn't expect some big answer tomorrow. As I understand it, well, I know that the case is submitted on the briefs. So we finished briefing a year ago. The plaintiffs had their reply after our brief. So they went into January-ish, I think. But the case has been briefed for a year. And it's now the time when the court is going to review it. It's batched with a bunch of cases that they're hearing oral arguments for tomorrow. But our case doesn't have oral arguments. And so nothing should happen. They should not be able to speak about a case in open court without the parties present.
Right.
But we're in Colorado.
Well, maybe not.
Every single bit of this has been weaponized. So just in case.
Maybe go incognito so that they don't recognize.
I could wear my Halloween costume. Not the zombie one. The
Just
leftist protester one.
Mask.
The No Kings protester one.
They would never dare make you take off your N95 mask.
They wouldn't.
So just wear an N95.
You have to show your ID to go in, though, Brian.
That's fine. You can show your ID to go in. The marshals aren't going to be the ones that are going to be calling in.
There's marshals involved now?
Yeah, marshals protect every courthouse.
There's a part of me that's hoping the DOJ will do something, because the DOJ opinion in the case right now, before it's being heard, in this court is that the case should be reversed, go back down for another trial, and I should have to do all this shit all over again. That's what the Merrick Garland DOJ's opinion in my case is. Now, it's a little bit complicated because I think the arguments that they make about unincorporated associations, which is most of, so the DOJ briefed, have a statement of interest. It's pretty much about unincorporated associations and the lower court making an error on her ruling back in like January of 2023. But at the end of it, they urged the court to reverse our judgment. I think that's bullshit. But I think that the current DOJ wants to keep that position on unincorporated associations because of all the Antifa stuff. You know, it's consistent with what this administration has been saying about Antifa. And so it's, you know, most likely outcome is that they won't touch it because it actually still, even though the reversal part, I don't think they would agree with, because the reversal, if they're saying reverse, it basically means they think election denialism is voter intimidation. And I don't think that that's the position of this administration. But the unincorporated association thing is probably the position of this administration. And so nothing will probably happen there. But, you know, I can hold my breath for a little bit.
Is the appellate court at the same courthouse?
So next door, though. It's that big white one with the pillars.
Oh, the nice,
like the big legit looking courthouse one. Yeah. I had to go down there to actually submit my brief. And that was exciting. All
right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, we'll hit the thumb. We'll read the rants. If there are any, we'll read them next week. And good luck to you tomorrow, Ash.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Before skincare went synthetic, people used something simple, something real. Tallow. Grass-fed and finished beef tallow is packed with vitamins A, D, E, and K. Nutrients your skin actually knows what to do with. It locks in moisture, restores elasticity, and defends against winter dryness. No water, no preservatives, and no BS. Unlike plant oils or chemical creams, tallow mimics your skin's own structure. Elbows, hands, knees, post-shave, anywhere your skin's crying for real moisture. Perfect for gifting or keeping your own skin soft when the cold hits. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off. Ancient Care, modern truth.